It's Chop Soccer Podcast. We are back in the building. Kenzel Washington, what up with you, my boy?
What up? What up? What up? How you doing?
I'm here. I'm feeling good, man.
You look good.
We're a little pressed. Oh, appreciate you. Appreciate you. That
You-
clean white. You know the spring is coming. You got to get right.
Yeah, yeah. Yo, man. The white Adidas. Like it's hard to beat like white Adidas jerseys with like the stripes on the side. Like that's clean. Like it's just clean.
Yes,
Like it's
sir.
hard to it's hard to beat that fit, bro.
I heard you was out in Chocolate City.
Yeah. I touched down in DC for work earlier this week. That's why we missed the MLS power rankings this week. But whatever. I mean, it's a 50 game season.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to get some chicken and mumbo sauce?
Yeah. I got a chicken box and some mumbo sauce the first night I was there. Um I tried to get to one of the actual Ben's Chili Bowl locations,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't able to. So I had to grab Ben's Chili Bowl in the airport on the way out.
Ah.
Had to get me a quarter link. I had to get me a hot link
Hey yo.
with with chili.
See,
So
that's the problem with the man today. They too busy focused on the quarter link where they need to be focused on the sneaky link.
oh my god, we on that
I'm
time
kidding.
today? We
Hey,
on that
listen,
time
man. Let's
today?
have some fun while we're here.
Yeah, man. Shout out to all the stinky links too. Like,
I'm not sure that's the right shout out to make.
why not, bro? Like, shout out to your stinky link. No, I mean, like, if you cheating, you cheating. Like
Yeah,
we don't endorse cheaters,
yeah,
but like, if you got a life and like you got somebody on the low that like you don't want nobody to know about because it's kind of like a situationship,
right.
and y'all know what it is, and y'all getting it done. Like,
Yeah,
shout
yeah. I'm
out,
here
big
for
up to
that.
y'all.
Shout out to y'all sneaky links.
Yeah, shout out to y'all sneaky links. Like we don't endorse cheaters, but
Yeah, we
like
don't
shout
endorse
out,
cheaters, man.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
the black man is God. We would never endorse such a thing.
Black men don't cheat. Like black men
No,
don't
I'm
cheat.
messing with y'all. Let's get into some soccer talk, man. There was quite a bit of chatter this week, so we might as well jump on it too and talk
Hey
about the U.S.
yo,
men's national team. Come on now. That was, I mean, I get it, but in the rhythm, it made sense.
in the rhythm.
U.S. men's national team placing fourth in the CONCACAF Nations League after a 2-1 defeat in the third place game, losing to Jesse Marsh and Canada. Oh, man. A lot of hurt feelings over this one. Um, I am definitely extremely disappointed, but I'm also not as doom and gloom as a lot of people were about this. However, there is one point that I definitely wanted to get your feedback on. I tagged you on Instagram. There was someone who posted that the reason that the U.S. men's national team is not any good is because of pay to play and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, bro, y'all always go to this. And I don't think that's the reason at all. Share your ideas about the main underlying cause of why the U.S. men's national team continues to struggle to produce above their weight on paper.
Um, it's I would say it's a mixture of having too many players in offense that do the same thing and not being committed to a style of play at the national team level for a long period of time. Right? Like that's really just it. Like you don't like there's 300 million people, right? Like in the United States. So the idea that we are ever going to have like some type of grassroots pipeline that touches every corner of the country, that pulls everybody up when soccer isn't even the most popular sport in the country is just like it's just a misalignment of and a not it's just a misalignment and misunderstanding of like where we are like in reality,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like the bigger problem is that with the players we have, we don't produce enough variance in terms of what they do. So, like for example, a midfield of Weston McKinney, Tyler Adams, and Christian Pulisic is not going to be that creative,
Mm.
right? So when you have a lot of the ball, or if you play that way, then like you're just not going to produce a lot. Like you're just not. Like Weston McKinney, as good as of a player as he is, he's not a creative player, right? Like Tyler Adams, as good as a player as he is, he's not a creative player. These aren't like pick a pass players, right? So if you say you're going to play an offensive style game, you have to have offensive style players in the system for good or for bad,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like
Like
Timothy Weah,
Brazil.
huh?
Like Brazil.
Yeah, like Brazil. Well, this is the problem Brazil has run into, like, recently is that, like, their creative players, they all go to Europe at a very young age. So they lose that creativity that makes them, like, natively, like, Brazilian, is what we would think of as, like, the typical Brazilian player, like the stereotypical Brazilian player. And that's the main problem that I see with this team is that, like, you look at players on the wide, you look at players on the wings like Timothy Weah and whoever else we got playing on the wings, just pick, right? Like they're not really dribblers, right? Like you're not going to get the ball out to them and then they're going to create something and make it happen. They're like speed merchants,
Mhm.
like counterattacking football, like, you get the ball out wide to them, they push it by somebody and they're off, right? And that's just the problem is that like we've reached this point where we want to play like the way Spain plays, or we want to play the way Germany plays, where, we're going to ping the ball around, possess the ball, create these opportunities, but we're not creating opportunities because we just don't have those players on the field. It's not like they don't exist in America. We just haven't optimized for those players. Like this generation isn't optimized for that. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like to optimize for those players now, you would have to start selecting them at like 16 and 17 right now to be on the cusp of the team. So then those are the players that get pushed to the forefront from the pay to play pools and get like pushed into Europe, right?
Right.
Because that's how all these guys got good, right? Like we picked all the players from the players we thought we needed to play the style we wanted to play, and then we pushed them into Europe, right? So the next crop of guys that we need to push into Europe are going to have to be our creative guys. And that's really it. Like pay to play produces enough players. Like, and it's really the only way, like, you're going to get people that are interested in the game to play, right? Because there's just not going to be the money to invest it at a way to like truly bring people through the, like, quote unquote grassroots, like when there's going to be no money generated from the other side and this is the fourth most popular sport in our country.
Right.
So that's the
So
big problem I see.
that is 100% accurate. That's why I wanted your take because I knew you were going to bring the more sporting specific side of it. I'm here to bring that other shit. What when we look at, especially in like this well, not this current generation, but let's say this last two cycles of the men's national team, we saw uh easily the blackest US men's national team we've ever seen,
Hmm.
right? Here for that. Love it. But it also begs the question, like now under Pochettino and the way the team has shifted a little bit again, we still see many of the players that we saw in the last cycle, but a lot of them have fallen to the wayside as well, or at least for right now. Maybe they'll pop up later in some other tournaments. We got the Gold Cup coming up, yada yada yada. When you think about the best football nations that have produced results in world tournaments, we're going to say Germany, Spain, Italy, Brazil, who else?
Argentina,
Argentina, right? All of those,
France.
France, largely homogenous societies,
Mm-hmm.
if not by phenotype, then by language and culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because France, obviously, a lot of African immigrants there, but they are French. They speak French. Culturally, they're French. They're of African descent.
Mm-hmm.
They have issues with race in those countries, all of those countries, but the way it's managed is quite different from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it often makes me think like, I think this team is always going to struggle because regardless of the issues happening in those other countries, especially those that are more mixed race in their population and on their national team, when they come to play for that team, they are playing for that nation and
Mm-hmm.
what that nation means. A shared understanding of what that nation, being a citizen of that nation means. I don't think the US has that, has ever had that, or is going to have that. And I think that's a large part of the reason why they're going to continue to struggle in tournaments outside of CONCACAF. Because if half of your team experiences America in one way and another half of your team experiences America in a completely different way, right? And granted, you're all, probably playing in Europe, multimillionaires, you live a comfortable life. But before you got to that point, it was a different America.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put that shirt on, your understanding of fighting for that badge is not the same as the person next to you necessarily. And I think that's a major issue that until there is some significant redress, I guess, and how we consider the the sports position in the United States, the way we consider talent for that team, and the way we present that team back to the nation it represents, and vice versa, it's going to be this. And that's the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% that it might not ever, like, now that the team is more integrated in that way, like, well, in racially, it might not ever be the same again. And mainly because playing for the national team used to mean something when it was like slightly integrated, like not all the way integrated, but there was a very clear understanding that that was the pinnacle of the soccer you would be playing,
Mm.
right?
And now it
So,
might be the floor.
yeah. So when like, in a lot of those early teams, like, playing against, when you went to the World Cup, like that was probably going to be the toughest tournament you ever played in your life, right? So you had to stick together, right?
Mm.
Like there was no like, okay, like, I'm gonna be playing Champions League next week. I play in Italy week to week, which is harder than like playing in CONCACAF, like blah 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 blah. Like there was none of that, right? Like the peak that a lot of these guys were playing at was at a point like even if they were overseas, they weren't playing for top clubs. So like, this was going to be the height of the competitive environment, playing for the national team. And that's what you see that builds that camaraderie in a lot of those areas, right? So like let's say you are like France or Germany or something like that. Like yeah, you play in your club league or whatever, but when you go to the Euros, like, you got some real tough games against other great countries where this is their number one sport,
Mm-hmm.
and like, they care about it as much as you do,
Right. Right.
right? Like when we come back here and we play in CONCACAF, like we're the big dogs on the block. So it doesn't, yeah. So it doesn't really like mean anything when you put on the shirt and you go play Panama the way when Panama puts on the shirt and they come play us.
Right. And they're like, we got to get these motherfuckers.
Yeah, they automatically have that unity because they're on like this is going to be a harder game for them than it is going to be for us, and that bridges a lot of that,
Mm.
you know? Like you're always going to see like team riffs and stuff in teams just like any team there is because that's just the nature of just like teams or whatever, right? Like personalities, like political opinions, blah 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 blah. But usually when you are in a situation where the odds are very great that you're going to fail, like you push all of that aside and you kind of like supersede all of that, right?
Right.
Like that's where the unity comes from, you know, because the odds are so minimal. Like the US is expected to win like a lot of these games, right? So when you go in with that expectation of like, yeah, we're supposed to do this, like, your mind isn't necessarily on like focusing on doing this. It's, over here or over there or over here. And like a lot of that stuff, like, just kind of creeps in. And, you're 100% right, man. Like, unless we get to a point in this country where like everybody cares about soccer the way like everybody cares about like men's basketball when the Olympics rolls around, or like football like year to year with like teams and stuff like that. Like unless we get to that point and it's not just, oh yeah, like everybody likes soccer because it's the new trendy thing that people have been telling us are going to be like the new thing, like, like it's not going to resonate in that way. And
Yeah.
that's what I really think you're touching on right now is just like how deep it resonates to some people, where all of this other stuff kind of supersedes it in these other countries. Like all of this other stuff doesn't supersede it in in those other countries. In
Right.
America, like anything else supersedes it. Like, you got your boy Christian Pulisic like doing the little Trump dance or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Like
crazy.
he votes however he votes, he feels however he feels. But I mean, like, you in those other countries, you don't see a lot of European power like nations or like, the big South American nations like making political statements on this stage because like the unity's there. You would never disrupt the chemistry like that.
Bingo. Bingo. Anyway, this has been another chop soccer session. That was a tongue twister. Bro, we've been spent these last 2 weeks, man. But yeah, I just wanted to, as soon as I saw that post, I was like this right here is the problem because those voices are the ones that are the most invested in soccer. So they
Mm-hmm.
go and they get licenses and they train and then they go sit in boardrooms and they regurgitate this same shit. So it ends up literally going from a fucking Instagram comment to a boardroom conversation and nothing changes.
Yeah.
And you're completely missing the reality of what soccer is in the United States, and then two, the level of care and understanding and nuance that's necessary to uh keep this keep this team, like I said, punching above their weight on paper. It's so
Mm-hmm.
much more complex than just, oh, these guys are playing in Europe, like let's bring them back here. It's more than that. But anyway, we don't
Yeah.
have that much time today.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just like there's a willingful ignorance to try to say that because soccer works one way in the rest of the world, it should work here in that way
Right.
when nothing else in the rest of the world works like it does in America. Right?
Right.
Like nothing else in the rest of the world works like it does in America. So like the idea that like, we would be able to take that model and just like retrofit it onto American society and have it return similar results is just willful ignorance. Like
Yeah.
that's all it is. Like people just choose not to see it because they don't want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Speaking of willful ignorance, let's let's talk. Let's go back and talk some more about USL and their adoption of promotion and relegation for
Sheesh.
US soccer. Hey man, I was proud of our post. You chopped it up nice, dropped it on Instagram. It did a little numbers, man.
Yo, I wish I could. I wish I wouldn't have been so busy this weekend, like preparing to go out of town for work, man. Because I had a couple more I wanted to chop up. Like that was a really good conversation, and like we got a couple people chiming in, a couple people talked to me offline about it, and like I I don't want people to think that like we're just hating on USL, but like you have to be hyper realist about like what is happening and even if it's going to come to fruition.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you don't want to answer or cannot answer, it's fine.
Okay.
The people who discuss this with you offline
Mhm.
and may potentially have thought that we were just hating on USL.
Mhm.
Do those individuals look like us?
Are they in the room right now?
Are they in
Are,
the room?
are they are the people that's hating on you hit are they in the room right now? I will say some of them, yes. Not the people that uh not the people that we are normally associated with because like, they just throw all black podcasts together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's been across the board, like black people, white people, like, people that play, people that don't. Like it's a real kind of like interesting issue. And like ever since we started posting clips, like more people have like done research on what we're talking about and like tried to form their own opinions, which I'm really happy about more than anything. But like no, it wasn't any of the usual suspects this time.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah. No, no, no,
But I
no,
only
no.
say that because, yeah, like I think a part of the reason that we work so well is that like our perspective on living, surviving, and thriving in this fucking country comes with a lot of pain that, if you ain't lived this shit, we just not having the same conversation, bro. And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like we understand, but you need to understand that we arrived here through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And like this shit is what it is in this country. And the sooner that more of us accept that on the same level, I think the better off everybody will be. But anyway,
And this
that's
isn't
a
and like, I think another thing, like, soccer is the primary sport I play. It's not the only sport I'm involved in
right,
or I like.
right.
So, like, when it comes to being able to look at what's happening in other things and then, like, say, like, oh no, like, like this isn't going to work the way you think it works because in the sporting landscape in total, in the
Right.
United States, like this is what makes something successful. This is what makes something unsuccessful. It's very easy to just like see overlappingly like what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my really good friends, who's actually like a work colleague, his son plays travel baseball,
Hmm.
and he's just taking an interest in soccer because like everybody's like, oh, soccer's the next big thing, like, soccer's the next big thing. So he, like, is just like, oh, let me learn about soccer since soccer's about to be the next big thing apparently. Right.
Right.
He's always kind of loosely watched European soccer, but I
Right.
mean, like, he's never really followed it here. He asks so many questions, and like just intuitively so many things make sense to him about MLS that doesn't make sense to him about like other European leagues or
Right.
other European leagues, because MLS is a mirror of the American soccer landscape here.
Right. Sporting
And
landscape, even.
yeah, the American sporting landscape here. And it's one of the reasons why MLS is becoming more successful without necessarily like turning large amounts of revenue from like gates and stuff like
Right.
that. It's because
It must be remembered that Don Garber came from the NFL,
mhm,
the Kings.
mhm.
And he was like, I'll show you how to do this shit, son.
And that, dude, that is why I 100% believe that MLS is going to 32, stopping at 32, and then we're going to get NFL style divisions.
We've had this conversation many, many times.
Yeah.
Uh Same point. We don't have much time left, but I want to get over a couple things. So
Okay.
in this article, it was very interesting point brought up that I want to address here briefly. There's a section here. This is from a Forbes article, and it says it's basically titled "Why the USL Promotion and Relegation Vote Actually Matters." There's a section in here. Will selling authenticity really drive this USL project? As the nation's largest operator of a second and third tier pro men's soccer league, USL has already positioned itself as a more authentic and grassroots alternative to the somewhat plastic veneer of MLS's corporatist vibe. Tell me who wrote this article. Adopting a pyramid system doubles down on that positioning as it attempts to vault its image from minor league to major league status. But it may also make one of the most effective arguments against MLS harder to prove. For years, those who American fans who choose not to support the league, be they USL supporters or not, have dangled the lack of promotion and relegation as a reason MLS struggles to attract American fans who are active followers of England's Premier League, the UEFA Champions League, or other popular European soccer properties. Yet, this is the key point here. Of the millions of Americans who follow the Premier League, very few are close followers of clubs who regularly find themselves in relegation scraps. And when I read that, I was like, yo, I did not even, I don't know why this didn't cross my mind,
Say the
but
quiet part out loud.
you know a ton more soccer fans than I do
Mhm.
that follow all leagues because you actually follow the Premier League. You've
Mhm.
done, Premier League Sundays. You've been on their network stuff and all that, yada yada yada. Do you know an Ipswich Town follower?
One, I think I met one.
Wow,
A
but
couple,
that's crazy
yeah, like
that you know one at all.
I've met one a couple months ago, at Premier League Fan Fest,
Oh,
where it was like every fan in Chicago of the Premier League comes out, and like, most of your fans are like this is the quiet part out loud. Like, if you do pro rel, like, even let's say in the best of cases it works, like people are still only going to be fans of the bigger teams
right,
because they're the teams that are going to win. So they're the teams disproportionately that are going to get more of the advertising. They're the teams that are disproportionately going to get more of the like media attention, like so on and so forth, blah 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 blah. So like there's going to be a wide schism of haves and have-nots. And you see it in the premier, like you see it through overseas fandom of the leagues.
right,
So this is like, yeah, this is the quiet part out loud, man. Like, like they spill in the sauce. Like you're gonna the big teams that you're gonna find here that people support are Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and then you start to find like your Spurs. You find Man City because they have been like a lot better since their financial takeover. And then outside of those six, just kind of like from there, like is it dramatic drop off, and then you find like your
Well,
random fans and stuff.
bro, you know what else this made me think of? So there's a guy that I work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge sports fan. Does not fuck with soccer, right?
Mm-hmm.
At all. I've tried to invite him out to games. I'm like, bro, I got your ticket. Like, just pull up, enjoy yourself. Not interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been trying to get into the Premier League a little bit. He's like, I'm gonna, give this a shot. I'll start with the Premier League for whatever reason. Okay, fine.
Biggest league in the world.
So I said, did you pick a team? He was like, yeah. I was like, oh, what team did you pick? He says, Tottenham Hotspur. I said, oh my God. So of course, my little general ball knowledge. I'm like, oh man, that's a terrible pick. Why would you do that? He's like,
Yeah.
oh, because I didn't want to pick like one of the big
What
guys. Like it's
what are the
too
big
easy to
guys?
pick Manchester City or such and such. Like I want to kind of be like they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of good and they're kind of relevant. I was like, even in that situation, like somebody who doesn't know anything, the very first research he didn't go pick a relegation zone team.
No.
He picked a team that is not necessarily going to win necessarily, but they're not going to get relegated.
Yeah.
And of
And they
all the teams he could have picked, he still picked one of the most known names in the Premier League.
yeah. Like you're
He
only
ain't
picking
picked
known
Brentford, or I'm
entities.
looking at the list here because I don't even know all of them. He ain't picked Brentford. He didn't pick Everton. He didn't pick Leicester. He didn't pick Southampton. He didn't pick Fulham, Nottingham Forest. You know what I mean? Like
Nope.
Tottenham.
Clint Dempsey played for Tottenham. He played for Fulham. He actually made his Premier League like kind of career playing for Fulham. And you will find almost no Fulham fans in the United States.
Right.
And that should tell you everything you need to know about why people pick teams they pick and what's going to happen to what's going to happen with teams with pro rail, right? Because like this idea that MLS, they call MLS corporate, but you can't call it capitalist, right? Did you notice that?
That's a bar. That's a bar.
you
Clip it, stamp it, chop soccer.
Yeah, you can call it corporate, but you can't call it capitalist.
Woo.
Because all pro rail is the haves and have nots. And if you get over there, like, and you start talking to people, like, if you really just like peel back and you start talking to people about the European game, that's all they talk about. They're like, oh, like the same teams win it every year, like the same teams are at the top every year, like
Bayern,
blah, 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 blah.
PSG,
Yeah.
Man City.
Yeah, it's because like this is a have or have nots, like very capitalist situation you're talking about with pro rail. So like, yeah, if you're anti-corporate, say you're anti-corporate, but you cannot say that you are anti-capitalist and then go and support a like capitalist system that is pro rail, because pro rail is like one step away from being one of the most pure forms of capitalism in the free sports world.
Right, right, right. All right. A couple other things to address here. So, D1 sanctioning in the United States requires these four things: a minimum of 12 teams in year one, 14 teams by year three, teams in Eastern, Central, and Pacific time zones, though it doesn't say here in this specific if you need any specific number of teams in those zones, but you do have to have one in each zone. 75% of clubs in metro areas of 1 million people or more. That's key,
Mm-hmm.
but also not incredibly difficult in the United States because we're pretty densely populated just about everywhere. And then or on the coasts anyway. All stadiums enclosed with a minimum 15,000 seat capacity.
That's gonna
And
be the sticker.
yeah, that's the backbreaker right there. I think even if you are a third division team, or a second division team, and then you get promoted to the first division, now you have additional infrastructure requirements that need to be met. How are you going to do that? And
And
what
it's
does that look like if you make, let's say in a scenario, team does it, they make the investment somehow, whether it's adding on seats to a stadium they're already in, whatever it is, they get to the 15,000 minimum, and then they get relegated the next year.
I fucked my money up. Now I can't re up.
That's another bar.
It's gonna be some real Waka Flocka shit going
Yeah,
on in the
man.
USL, man. It's gonna be I
That's
fucked my money
crazy.
up. Now I can't re up.
Oh man. Anyway, man, we're gonna harp on this too long. I know you got to get up out of here, take care of some other things. Is there anything you wanted to leave the people with for this week? Again, we just want to reiterate: Ken is not hating on the USL. I am hating on the USL. Uh,
Kid is not hating on the USL. I
I
am
am,
hating.
and I'm hating on it because not because I don't believe that America could or should have promotion relegation. I I hate on USL because I live in this country and I've been a functioning adult in this country for 46, well not 46 years, but I am 46 years old now. I've seen just kind of how this place works,
Mm-hmm.
and there are just a few principles that apply across the board.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. We're all gonna see. Maybe one day I'll come back on this podcast and have to grovel at your, proverbial feet and say, I'm so sorry, I was so wrong. How could I be so stupid?
Yeah. But like if and like, there are a lot of smart business people out here. And like if pro rail was gonna work, it would have worked before now. Like especially in the conditions that like America's like starting to like move into right now. Like
100%.
this ain't the optimal time to be like introducing like a sink or swim type league like into into American society.
I can see the articles now. USSF refuses to save
Yeah.
USL. Yeah,
Hmm.
we're gonna see. But you
Um
got anything else for the people, man?
yeah, man. I guess we were gonna do dead last or not so fast, but like we'll just
Oh
leave that
yeah,
for
my
we'll
bad.
leave that for another time. Yeah, we'll just throw that teaser out there. We got some stuff coming. We got we got crown 'em or clown 'em coming. We got dead last not so fast. We got some good stuff coming. Um, I do want to take a moment and say I am very disappointed in the NWSL because there is a real life hack for Saturday night soccer that no one is talking about where you can watch NWSL for free, no subscription on Saturday nights or Saturdays,
I
just
wish
any
I could
game.
do the theme song that they do. Bing, bing, to beat.
Doobie. Yeah, so I actually watched all NWSL. I watched both NWSL games last week on Saturday on Tubi, absolutely free. Didn't
This is
need
not
it.
sponsored content.
This is not sponsored content. And I didn't need the big thing was I didn't even need to like log in or create a login.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like NWSL, like get on that. Like make that well known because more people would watch if they knew that like you could do it that way. I
Maybe we
100%
should
believe
hit
that.
up their little inbox. See what we talking about. I know they got some money. Niggas had the Super Bowl, bro. I
Yeah.
know they got some money.
Yeah.
Pass that. Pass some of that over here, man.
You should
Reparations.
yeah, you should be like I would be working with Tubi to like broadcast that we have
Oh
NWSL games on
shit.
Tubi. 100%. But you know what? What do I know?
I mean,
What do I know?
this has been Chop Soccer Podcast, y'all. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will see you on the flip side.
Peace.